You become hyper-aware the moment someone notices you, not just physically, emotionally. You start monitoring your voice, your face, your posture. Even your breathing feels suddenly unnatural. And the strange part is, you can feel completely normal alone. But the second you feel seen, something inside you tightens, like your brain quietly switches from living to performing. Most people think this is insecurity, but that's only the surface. The deeper issue is that being perceived can feel emotionally dangerous, especially if, at some point in your life, being noticed also meant being judged, corrected, embarrassed, or misunderstood. Your nervous system remembers that, not as a thought, as a pattern. The brain is constantly predicting social outcomes. This is part of predictive processing, a cognitive mechanism where the brain tries to prevent emotional pain before it happens. If past experiences taught you that attention leads to discomfort, your brain begins treating visibility itself as a threat. So when people look at you, listen to you, or focus on you, your nervous system doesn't relax into the moment. It scans for mistakes. This is why you replay conversations later, why you suddenly become awkward when someone compliments you, why posting online can feel strangely exposing. Your brain is not asking, "Am I safe?" It's asking, "How do I avoid becoming emotionally exposed?" Over time, this creates something psychologists call self-monitoring. You become deeply aware of how you appear from the outside, almost like carrying an invisible camera around all day. And eventually, you stop experiencing life directly. You start watching yourself experience it. That's exhausting, because the brain cannot fully relax while constantly evaluating itself. There's also a hidden contradiction inside this pattern. You may want connection. You may want to be understood. But being fully perceived feels threatening at the same time, because real visibility creates uncertainty. People might misunderstand you, reject you, see flaws you cannot control, so your brain chooses a safer strategy: controlled visibility. You reveal edited versions of yourself, enough to participate, not enough to feel emotionally exposed. And after years of this, you may not even know what natural self-expression feels like anymore. But this response is not random. It's adaptive. The brain evolved to protect social belonging because, historically, isolation threatened survival. Social rejection activates many of the same neural pathways as physical pain. So your nervous system treats perception seriously, especially if you grew up in environments where attention felt unpredictable. Maybe people noticed you only when you failed. Maybe you were criticized often. Maybe you learned that visibility increased pressure. The brain remembers emotional environments the same way the body remembers pain, quietly, automatically. A useful mental model for this is the stage light effect. Imagine your nervous system standing under a bright spotlight at all times. Even small actions feel magnified. A simple sentence feels risky. A tiny mistake feels permanent. But here's the important part. Most people are not observing you nearly as intensely as your brain assumes. The spotlight is mostly internal. Your attention amplifies your own visibility. And the more attention you place on yourself, the more unnatural you begin to feel. So how do you loosen this pattern without forcing confidence? The first step is reducing internal surveillance, not by stopping caring, but by redirecting attention outward. Research in cognitive psychology shows that social anxiety decreases when attention shifts from self-evaluation to external engagement. So during conversations, instead of monitoring your tone constantly, focus deeply on the other person's words, their expressions, the environment around you. This interrupts the brain's self-scanning loop. The second step is allowing small moments of unedited behavior, tiny ones, because authenticity becomes safer through repetition. Maybe you say what you actually think once during a conversation. Maybe you leave a text slightly imperfect instead of rewriting it 10 times. These moments teach the brain something important. Visibility does not automatically lead to danger. That's how neural patterns change, not through logic alone, through lived emotional evidence. The third step is learning to tolerate being misunderstood sometimes. This is difficult because many people who fear perception also fear misinterpretation. But psychologically, trying to control every impression creates chronic tension. Your nervous system stays trapped in performance mode. Real self-trust begins when you accept that complete control over perception is impossible. Some people will misunderstand you, and your brain can survive that. Over time, something subtle starts happening. You stop feeling like an object under observation and start feeling like a person participating in life again. That's the real shift, because the goal is not to become fearless. It's to stop treating your own existence like a performance review. Maybe you don't hate being perceived. Maybe you just spent too long believing visibility was unsafe, too long learning how to be acceptable instead of natural. And eventually, your nervous system forgot the difference. But being seen does not always have to feel like danger. Sometimes it can simply feel like existing, without editing yourself every second along the way.